Sixer Nation, I have a question for you. Do we really want to see a 40-year-old LeBron James in Philly next year rocking blue, red, and white alongside Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey? The reason I ask is because, look, I was ready to put the Bron stuff to bed. However, we have some new wrinkles. There's a lot of noise right now. And although I don't think he wants to leave LA or, will for that matter, I think his last desire is to play alongside his son, and any certain way that he can probably do that, I think he'd at least be willing to entertain. So we will get into that, as well as some other free agents that are being linked to the Philadelphia 76ers. But welcome on in, Philly Take with RB. Do me a favor, like the video and subscribe to the show. We continue to break it all down. Now, I want you to keep this in the back of your mind just to start off. The NBA draft order, and yesterday, the New Orleans Pelicans decided to defer the first round pick, which means they'll get it next year, and the Lakers now have it this season, right? And number 17 is where the Lakers are selecting. One behind Philly. Keep that in mind. Phoenix at number 22. The reason I put that out there is because there is a lot of noise right now around Bronny James, right? He decided to stay in the draft, and he wants to go to the NBA, even though he didn't really do much in college at all. But he's LeBron's son, and everybody wants to see them play together, and LeBron wants to get that done, be the first to ever do it. And we've heard two teams for the last several weeks, right? We've heard the Lakers, and we've heard the Suns. However, Brett Siegel of ClutchPoints says that the Sixers have emerged as a third possible suitor for Bronny James. Here is more on that quote. Quote, as the 2024 NBA draft nears, more chatter surrounding Bronny and where he could possibly end up has occurred. Now, in addition to the Suns and Lakers being viable destinations for Bronny, the Sixers have emerged as a third possible suitor for the 19-year-old, league personnel told ClutchPoints recently. Is it so worth it to get LeBron James at 40 years old on, let's say, a $50 million contract, to also have to use your first round pick on LeBron James' son, Bronny James Jr.? Is that worth it? Is that what the Sixers should do? Matter of fact, I put out the question on Twitter last night, and I was very surprised actually at the reaction, right? Half the people, I would say, were all in. Yes, what are you thinking? You're crazy. Why would you not want LeBron James? Philly's used to Tobias and things like that. And then the other half are saying, no, what are you, crazy? This is the worst idea ever. This would be absolute torture. It'd be taking a step backwards, and it just does not make sense at all. So I was actually very surprised on all platforms to see the reaction the way it was. And we talked about this weeks ago. I said, LeBron James is still playing at a high level. LeBron James would probably come in here, and I think he could take the Sixers to the finals, no doubt. But there are a lot of questions, right? How does the team play? Can all the guys stay healthy, right? LeBron's starting to get injured as he gets older. I know he's in good shape, but he's 40 years old. Sixers have had very, very bad injury history when it comes to some of these older players, and it would be so Sixers-like to bring in LeBron James and then he gets injured and can't play. You know what I mean? So in addition to that, you have to look at the contract. And I've been saying this all along. Sure, we've talked about LeBron and Kevin Durant and, Paul George and Jimmy Butler. But I really feel like now moving forward, the way to build a championship contender is you got to have the two cornerstone blocks. You got to have the two pieces, the two big stars, and you have to find the best role players around them. Here's the dilemma that the Sixers are going through. Really, the main way to do that is by drafting good. And the Sixers do not draft good, and they don't have a lot of draft picks. In addition to that, you got to find some hidden gems. Look at the NBA playoffs right now. All the guys that are producing around the league, a lot of them were passed over. The Derrick Jones Jr.'s of the world. You know what I mean? Daniel Gafford at the deadline. Those types of players are the ones you have to find. And the problem with Philly is that if they can't find those guys now, like, you're wasting another year of Joel Embiid's prime. So the time is ticking. There's like a time bomb and it's about to go off. And if the Sixers don't get it right now, then it feels like they never will. You know what I mean? So it's like, Do you try to find those hidden gems and draft a couple guys and let them develop? Or do you try to get one of these third stars and hope that a trio can get to the finals, even if you have to surround them with minimum players? But like I said, as it relates to LeBron, I think he'd be a great impact. I think there's some clutch ties there. Maybe Maxey can start chirping it up a bit. But I don't see any way LeBron actually leaves LA. I think they will do whatever it takes to pressure everybody else to stay away. And I think Bronny will go to the Lakers. But keep in mind, the Sixers have the leverage. They're the ones picking first out of all three teams at number 16. I don't know if Bronny James Jr. is worth the 16th pick. So we'll just have to wait and find out. But I would hope that they don't go and, spend the entire salary cap on three players again and make a similar mistake, especially with players that are getting older. Again, it's a tough decision. It really is. So we'll have to wait and see. But another player that we have obviously talked about a lot, Jimmy Butler. Mike Scotto on the Locked On Heat podcast made an appearance, says, quote, Sixers are right at the top of the list for teams interested in acquiring Jimmy Butler, which we already knew. But he says Philly would prefer to sign Paul George in free agency over having to trade the assets to get Jimmy Butler. So again, with Paul George, you're paying a lot of money, but you don't have to give up anything to get him. And I agree. I don't think the Sixers should give up, 3 first-round picks and then give Jimmy Butler a max, especially when he has his durability issues on his own as well. So, yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And if Mike Scotto is correct with his information, I definitely think Paul George, as I said the other day, is by far the number one target on Daryl Morey's hierarchy, I guess. So we'll see, man. But Zach LaVine, another guy who's kind of fallen into the mix a bit. We haven't talked about him too much, but Evan Sideri says the Bulls' asking price for Zach LaVine has dropped per KCJ Hoop, covers the Chicago Bulls. Both sides have increased desires on making a trade happen this offseason. With LaVine's market barely materializing, it appears Chicago might be willing to simply perform a salary dump. And if you remember, this is actually what they wanted to do at the trade deadline. Like, they wanted to get rid of him. They wanted to dump his contract, probably to the Detroit Pistons. And at the end of the day, he got hurt. He said, I'm sitting out the rest of the season. And Zach LaVine's a player that I really like, or maybe really liked a couple years ago. You know what I mean? He has too many injuries now. He's not reliable. And obviously, I wish we would have gotten to see him in a better situation, maybe a better team, not playing with a guy like DeRozan, where I don't feel like their skill sets really combine that well. But now I think you're almost past the point. I know he's not that old yet, but it feels like you've reached that point where it's like, I just don't trust LaVine to stay healthy. And I think he has, 3 or 4 more years left on his deal at max money. There's no way any team wants to trade for that. Sadly, unfortunately, it is becoming one of the worst contracts in the NBA, and I would stay as far away as possible. So we'll see what happens with Zach LaVine. And Klay Thompson, who we mentioned briefly about a week ago. Klay Thompson, according to Anthony Slater of The Athletic, could look to go to a contender and pass up on more money from a lower team. Thompson wants to win. Don't expect him to chase the largest possible offer from the Pistons or Hornets, even if that is the correct financial or leverage move. But there are plenty of cap space teams with a clearer upward path to contention than the Warriors. That includes the OKC Thunder, the Philadelphia 76ers, and the Orlando Magic. So I really think a team like the Magic makes a lot of sense for Klay Thompson. I think a team like the Sixers could, but as it says there, you don't want to dive too deep into the water in terms of paying this guy too much, right? You look at what the Pacers did last year. They paid Bruce Brown. They ended up moving him in that Siakam trade. That is something I could see happening for sure. Maybe they give Klay Thompson a 1-and-1 deal and they end up, maybe moving him in a bigger deal down the line. Unfortunately, Klay seems washed at this point. I'm a big Klay Thompson fan, but the way that he went out in Golden State was just very sad. And, I remember that interview where he was even like, yeah, it sucks. I got to come off the bench and I'm used to being a 4-time champion. And now it's like my body's giving up on me. I'm not as consistent as before. I'm doing all the same things, but my shot is broke now. And I just don't know if he's consistent enough to say, give him 20, 25, 30 million a year. I think Klay Thompson could be a solid role player if paid like a solid role player rather than a star. So who knows what's going to happen with Klay Thompson? I could definitely see one of these other teams, though, taking the expertise, the experience into play and saying, yeah, we'll overpay for Klay. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. But do you think he could be a good target for the Sixers? At the end of the day, like I said, they got to find some hidden gems. Go around the league, scout out the league. Look at guys who are maybe unhappy in their situation or they're not playing that much. Bring them over to Philly and see if they can do something with a bigger opportunity. That's pretty much where my mind's at right now. But again, we'll see what the Sixers have in store. Give me your thoughts down below. Appreciate everybody tapping in. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. That being said, I will catch you all on the next one. Peace.